Let's go Seattle Seahawks here first. 10-7 last year. I mean, is there a bigger wild card in the NFC than the Seattle Seahawks? Just because I think there's a lot of pieces for them to be good, but then there's just Geno Smith for Sam Darnold, the wide receiver overhaul. They're just overhauled in a couple key areas, and I would say the offensive line remains a question mark heading into the season. I love what Seattle might have on the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that first, but Sam Darnold comes in. By all reports, they were trying to get a deal done with Geno Smith. They just got 3 good, solid starting seasons out of Geno Smith. I think that kept Seattle very competitive, right? They were a fringe playoff team that made it to the playoffs or just missed the playoffs these last couple seasons here. Now Sam Darnold comes in, coming off an incredible season. I think when it happened, I said overall it feels like a lateral move, but it's also fair to say Darnold's last season was better than any of Geno's last 3. But Geno Smith had 3 years of consistency. We've only seen Sam Darnold do it once. So it's just a big wild card here. Can they get another good year out of Sam Darnold without Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, without Kevin O'Connell, and perhaps with another questionable pass-protecting offensive line, because that ended up being the undoing for Darnold in Minnesota down the stretch last year.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? It's that every Darnold statement has to end with the caveat until the end, right? It's like, yeah, his season last year was better than anything we'd seen from Geno until the end. And the end like almost it undid everything. I mean, not just the Rams game, but the Lions game before that. Remember, the final weekend of the season, everything was on the line. The 2 14 win teams were going head-to-head with the number 1 seed on the line, with the division on the line, with the sort of chance to prove that they were the best team out there on the line. And Darnold wilted. And that was the first instance of him wilting. And it started off, okay, and then a bad thing happened, and it was like the replacements thing, the quicksand, right? Darnold tried to do more and more and just kept sinking deeper and deeper. And then the following week, it's like, well, that might have just been a blip against the other best team in the NFL. And then the same thing happened with the Rams, and they just destroyed him, and Darnold had nothing. So now you're like, okay, it's a small sample size. The rest of the season was spectacular. You can talk yourself into it, but it means that you've just given the keys to Darnold. You've handed them a decent amount of money, albeit not, it's not like you're paying him $60 million or anything. But you're taking this guy who ended the season literally collapsing, and you're putting him behind an offensive line that may not be any better than the one he was dealing with last season. Is your coaching any better than it was last season? I mean, Clint Kubiak coming in is an interesting name to pair with him. It's probably not an upgrade over Kevin O'Connell based off recent evidence. So it's a very unknown dynamic. Like, what are we going to get from Darnold?
And even if you don't break down his season into he was great and then he fell apart the last 2 games, if you look at the season in totality, which I'm doing, we have a career's worth of us making Sam Darnold jokes like, hey, the first 3 games he's really good. He just hasn't been consistent.
Yeah.
So high ends, like the inconsistent Darnold has been part of his career path. Last year, he just had a much longer stretch of good play. But to be fair, we were saying the same thing about Geno Smith after the 2022 season, which was like, here's this 8-year career backup. Now he's had 1 good year starting. Let me see it again. Like, can you actually bank on that again? And then he did it, right? Relatively the same over the last 3 years, Geno Smith. So if Darnold is the same, I'm not saying 40 touchdowns, but if he's got a similar level of play, Seahawks could be really good this year. But it's Darnold coming in, and you have DK Metcalf out, and you have Tyler Lockett out. So you have turnover at receiver as well. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, man, he week 7, week 6, whatever it was, absolutely turned a corner, looked like a star as well. You bring in an aging Cooper Kupp, who has not looked the same over the last couple of years. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's an MVP creator. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Every team he's on, the MVP quarterback is there, including Buffalo last year for a second. So yeah, it's just a lot of turnover in the pass game in Seattle this year.
It's such a weird offseason because heading into the offseason, this team looked like they were extremely well positioned because effectively everything was good except the interior of the offensive line, really. And you could maybe broaden that to 4/5 of the offensive line depending on where you are in Abraham Lucas at right tackle. But let's say, for the sake of argument, just the interior. I mean, that's a pretty easy brief to head into an offseason with. Like, all you got to do is fix this one area. Okay, it's 3 players, but one area, and you're good to go. I mean, you could contend based off the rest of the roster. And then it went from that to actually now you have to find a new quarterback and a new receiver, one or two, number 1 or number 2, depending on how you break down DK versus JSN. So, I mean, those are 2 of the most important things on the entire roster that weren't problems heading into the offseason and then became problems. Now, the Seahawks will argue this was beyond we couldn't do anything about it, right? Geno wanted out. There was no way of talking him off the ledge. Therefore, we had to make this move happen. Same thing with DK. I don't, whether or not that's true or not, who knows? We're not in the building. It's hard to know. But they created 2 extra problems that didn't need to be problems or didn't look like they were problems heading into the offseason. So now, like, the majority of their offseason becomes about, like, quick fill those holes. Like, let's patch the holes in the boat that have shown up out of nowhere. And then you still had to fix the interior of the offensive line. So, they then bring in a Gray Zabel in the draft. I love that as a draft pick. But it's such a weird situation because so much of the offseason was about fixing holes that didn't look like they were there before we even headed into the offseason.
And that's why I think they're such a big wild card, because Darnold did play good football last year overall. Cooper Kupp has been awesome, and if he's just that dependable, right place at the right time slot receiver, that's not the worst thing in the world next to JSN. But yet JSN's never dominated without DK Metcalf, so can he be the true number 1, right? So it's just a lot of wild cards, but with guys who have played football well, right? O-line, I don't know if they fixed it yet.
Right.
I was a big fan of Christian Haynes in the 3rd round the previous year. If he gets a shot at right guard, I think he's got overpowered at times when he played last year, but I think he's a really good fit for the new system here. Zabel looks like a really good fit for the system here from a zone blocking run game perspective. I think they could be a little bit better, but it's a huge unknown on the offensive line with a rookie first rounder and then, into a center guard who just haven't played great in the NFL just yet. So I think O-line's still a question. Darnold's still a question. But they've got the pieces, the 1-2 punch of Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet looks like that could be really good, but if the line's not blocking, it might not matter. Charles Cross looked like, from a left tackle perspective, he took a big step forward, and he will be the guy that is holding it down. But the other 4 spots are question marks because Abe Lucas, after his great rookie season, has been injured or ineffective relative to what he was originally. So there's as many questions on this offense, I think, as any other team in the league, I would say. And then defensively, I've made the statement, Steelers, Texans in these previews, that they have top 5 defense potential. Throw Seattle in that mix, top 5 defense potential with the defensive line depth that they've built, the ability to lock it down in the secondary. I love what they've done on the defensive side of the ball here. Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw the power of that scheme going in last year and what it was able to do to a group that was, I think, reasonably well situated from a personnel standpoint. It was really good. They've added some players to it as well. Your favorite player on the defensive side in the NFL, DeMarcus Lawrence, the new Morgan Moses.
Unbelievable addition. So
you would expect this defense to cook next year, and this is part of what I'm saying. Like, overall, this team looked really well positioned, but now Now their season becomes just a referendum on did they make the right call with Sam Darnold and trading away DK Metcalf.
Yeah, so D-line perspective, the great DeMarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams coming off of his best season. I loved Byron Murphy in the 1st round previous year. I think he still has a ton of potential there. Even just Jonathan Hankins holding the point. So they've got a ton of bodies up front. Derek Hall and his power. Uchenna and Nwosu's still there as a pass rusher. Boye Mafe. I mean, that's some depth on the defensive line. Ernest Jones helped that run defense quite a bit when he came over from Tennessee at linebacker.
Yep.
Reek Woolen, another one of those wild card types because of his size and speed. He could have one of those years where you just can't throw on him. There's some reports from camp that you can't throw on him. Devon Witherspoon looks like a star. I think the other cornerback spot has some questions, but man, it's a lot of good talent on the defensive side of the ball. Plus, if we go back to Mike McDonald, year 2 in his system, that's when the Ravens took a big jump, if we want to use history to try to project the future here. So year 2, of a ton of talent, and then Mike McDonald running the show there. So I think that's what's interesting about Seattle is I think their defense could be really good, and the offense is a wild card. So they're another one of those few teams we've said, no matter which way it goes, like if Darnold has another good season and the offense is good and the defense is really good and they win the division, I wouldn't be shocked. Or if they finish last, I also probably wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, jumping back to the offense for a tick. Also, this is like that backfield looks insane. Like you've got Kenneth Walker, who's amazing, phenomenal tackle breaker. Zach Charbonnet, who's a big, powerful, really impressive change of pace back. They drafted Damian Martinez, who slid an amazing amount in the draft, the running back from Miami. I really liked him as a combination. Those are three punishing but also pretty shifty, nifty running backs. They drafted Elijah Arroyo, the tight end from Miami as well, dynamic potential, a pass catcher. And then Torrey Horton, one of my favorite draft picks as well. Like I'm buying any and all Torrey Horton hype in preseason and training camp. And genuinely, there is the number 3 wide receiver role is there to be won in that offense. Like right now, we assume it's going to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the MVP maker. Torrey Horton could take that job without that much happening.
Let me add a name to this because Elijah Arroyo, their second-round pick, is a tight end in name.
Sure.
And they were raving about him as an ex-receiver. When Arroyo went in the second, he was fine. A lot of people liked him at tight end as the explosive tight end in this draft. Every now and then, some teams just see something completely different and special in a player. Yeah. I don't know that Seattle's the only team that saw this, but they're raving about Arroyo.
Arroyo becomes what people thought Kyle Pitts was?
Yes, as just like a pure receiver. I mean, they seem over the moon about
I could see
Arroyo.
I mean, dude, that guy...
And that is what his skill set is. I said he's one of the worst run-blocking tight ends I've seen, which is, right? So fine, put him on the outside. So
but at the Senior Bowl, I mean, you could see ex-wide receiver traits in there.
So he has a chance there as well. So again, that's a wild card. Torrey Horton, as you mentioned, he's a wild card. Cooper Kupp, wild card, as is Sam Darnold. That's the Seattle wild cards.
It's a really interesting offense now.
Yeah,
it's such an unknown because of the upheaval. And by the way, Jalen Milroe as well is like the backup quarterback slash.
Yes.
I mean, people talked about him as a guy who could play running back in the NFL. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that A, Jalen Milroe is forced into action if Darnold doesn't work out, or B, that they're able to find a way of getting him on the field as as an athlete with a package of plays or whatever.
Let's make our picks. So the over/under 7.5, by the way.
Yeah.
They're treating this. We said with Minnesota, we're like, man, this team's really good, but they've got this question at quarterback. We don't know what J.J. McCarthy is. Hasn't taken an NFL snap. Almost treating Sam Darnold the same way. Like there's no faith in Darnold having even a fraction of a good season compared to last year.
Yeah. I mean,
my prediction is Darnold has a similar season, like similar numbers as Geno the last few years.
Yeah. I feel
and
like
that's why I would go over the 7.5.
I don't know what you do with that Darnold season. It's so unusual where a guy looks like he's become a different player.
Even if the last 2 weeks didn't happen, you and I are like, show me one more time. Like in our nature is to do that.
Right.
Right. So if we never saw the last 2 weeks, we would still say, yeah, but no Kevin O'Connell,
but it's totally
no Justin
different.
Jefferson.
You would still have questions, of course, because, again, it would be like the Geno thing. You're like, okay, yeah, season's great, but, show me you can do it again. Of course you're going to have the questions, but it's way different than the way it ended. I mean, if it didn't end the way it did, I'm not sure he makes it out of Minnesota. Like, I think it changed their approach to the offseason. And it happened just as we had finally said, okay, it's time to stop expecting the wheels to fall off. Clearly, they're not going to, right? Like, we had spent all season waiting for the wheels to fall off, and they didn't. And then right as you finally go, okay, fine, he's actually become a different player, he goes all the way back to I'm seeing ghosts again and just collapses in on himself. I can't think of another situation in the NFL in history where that's ever happened, where a guy looks like he has completely changed as a player, and then in the course of a game, a switch flips and he goes all the way back to back in the shell, back in the hole. So number one, I honestly can't think of that ever happening before. So number two, who the hell knows what you do with that as information? Was that a blip? Was the season a blip?
What are you going to do with that information? Over under 7.5. I'm taking the over on Seattle. I'm buying Seattle here.
I'm going to take the over because I think everything around him is still pretty good. but I mean, I get it. It's like the Minnesota thing. They're basically giving him the same question marks as they gave J.J. McCarthy. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit this subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
The all-knowing algorithm is convinced that you'll like these videos as well, and frankly, who are we to argue?